If you've ever watched someone walk away from a relationship that was actually going well and wondered why they did it, this might explain a lot. Because avoidant people don't leave because they don't care. Most of the time, they leave because they do. And that contradiction is at the center of everything. On the outside, the avoidant personality type looks simple enough. They're the person who takes hours to reply to a message, not because they're busy, but because they're carefully calculating how much of themselves to give. They're the one who says, "I'm fine on my own," and genuinely believes it, until someone gets close enough to make them question it. They pull back when things get emotionally intense. They go quiet in conversations that feel too personal. They prefer to solve problems alone, even when help is right there. And to most people, this reads as coldness or disinterest or emotional immaturity. But that's not really what's happening. Here's what most people miss. The avoidant person isn't indifferent, they're hyper-aware. They notice everything, the shift in someone's tone, the subtle change in energy, the moment a relationship starts to feel like it requires more than they know how to give. And when they notice those things, something quiet happens internally, a kind of alarm. Not panic, nothing that dramatic, more like a slow, steady signal that says, "This is getting too close, pull back." That signal wasn't chosen, it was learned. Most avoidant patterns form early, in environments where emotional needs were either dismissed, ignored, or met with unpredictability. The child learns something profound. Needing people is risky, so they adapt. They become self-sufficient. They stop reaching out. They get very good at being alone. That's not weakness, that's survival intelligence.
And here's where it gets interesting. Because the avoidant person often wants connection, deeply. They just don't trust what comes after it. They've learned at a very foundational level that closeness leads to one of two things: disappointment or losing themselves entirely. So the distance isn't rejection, it's protection. It was never about not caring, it was about not knowing how to care and feel safe at the same time. This is where the pattern becomes really layered, because avoidant people are often some of the most emotionally intelligent people in a room. They read others well, they're thoughtful, they're perceptive, but they've built an identity around not needing, and that identity becomes its own kind of trap. When someone offers them genuine warmth, something interesting happens. Part of them wants to receive it. Another part immediately starts looking for the exit. Not because the warmth isn't real, but because accepting it means becoming vulnerable to losing it. And loss, for the avoidant person, isn't just loss. It's confirmation of something they already fear is true, that they aren't worth staying for, that closeness always ends in abandonment, that needing someone is the fastest way to get hurt. So they create the distance first. They leave before they can be left. They stay slightly out of reach, even in relationships they value. It's not manipulation, it's a very old, very practiced form of emotional self-defense. Over time, this pattern starts to shape identity in a significant way. The avoidant person begins to see themselves as someone who doesn't need people, someone who's better off alone, someone who's simply not emotional or not built for relationships. They wear that self-image like armor. And the painful irony is, the more they reinforce that identity, the harder it becomes to let anyone in. Because now it's not just about fear, it's about who they believe themselves to be. Every time they pull away, that story gets stronger. Every time connection feels overwhelming, the belief deepens. This is just who I am. But patterns are never just who someone is. They're responses, and responses have origins. The avoidant personality type isn't broken. They're not cold. They're not incapable of love or connection or depth. They're someone who learned very early that the safest place to be was slightly out of reach, and they got so good at that position that it started to feel like personality. Once you understand where the distance comes from, it stops looking like a wall. It starts looking like what it always was, a door that someone learned to keep closed because no one ever showed them it was safe to open it. That's not a character flaw, it's a pattern. And patterns, once seen clearly, are never quite invisible again. If this explained something about someone in your life or something about yourself, there's more to understand. Human behavior rarely means what it looks like on the surface.